Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Lesson 3, Activity-Based Costing System. In this lesson, we're going to learn the fundamentals of an activity-based costing system, including identifying activities and activity measures. We're going to go through an example of an activity-based costing system. We're going to calculate activity rates, calculate activity measures. We're going to record journal entries and related T accounts, and then we're going to go through the comparison of an activity-based costing system versus a traditional job order costing system. Alright, so let's get started. Basically, before we begin, we want to make sure that you got Lesson 1. Lesson 1 goes through very basic concepts about raw materials, direct labor, direct materials, manufacturing overhead, work in process, finished goods. All those concepts you're going to need in those, and then schedule of goods manufactured, how that flows. You're going to need to understand that to go through this activity-based costing system lesson. So make sure you watch Lesson 1 before you get into this lesson. So let's start. To start, we're going to talk about some concepts and definitions. So have Lesson 3 cheat sheet in front of you. Turn to the side with the concepts and definitions. And we're going to go right in the middle here in the gray box, activity-based costing in bold. We're going to get the definition of an activity-based costing system. Activity-based costing is a technique that uses a number of allocation bases to assign overhead costs more accurately to products than would be achieved by using a plant-wide or departmental approach, such as those in job order costing. So a little bit background. Traditionally, companies had a single product or just a couple products, and they had one warehouse, and accounting was pretty simple. But nowadays, within one warehouse or one factory or manufacturing facility, you can manufacture multiple products. You can have multiple steps within that process. And over the years, manufacturing has gotten more complicated, and as such, activity-based costing, that process was created so that we can allocate better the overhead, because this is all about overhead, how we can better allocate the overhead to the different products within a factory or a facility where we're doing multiple activities and we have multiple products. So we're moving away from a more traditional job order costing and into the more advanced activity-based costing where there's multiple products. So in order to do that, we break it down into different measures and allocate it based on those different measures. And we're going to get into that, but that's the definition or the concept behind activity-based costing. Next, let's go up to the top, and we're going to talk about what an activity is. An activity is an event that causes the consumption of overhead resources. Like I said, these costing systems, job order costing, process costing, activity-based costing, they're all about allocating overhead. And so activities, an activity within an activity-based costing system is an event that causes the consumption of our overhead resource. An activity cost pool is a bucket or a group of costs related to a particular activity. Activity measure, the unit that shows how much of an activity is carried out and is used as an allocation base, similar to Lesson 2 in job order costing, where we're using direct labor hours to allocate overhead. We can also allocate based on direct labor hours in an activity base, but an activity measure is that direct labor hours is an activity measure. Activity rate, it's the predetermined overhead rate for each activity cost pool. Let's go over to the middle here. We're going to talk about the cost pools and activity rates, but we got to talk about certain activity levels. All right, so there's batch level activities, which are performed for a group of units or customers all at once. There's customer level activities performed for a specific customer. Facility level activities performed to support all of the company's products or services. Product level activities performed to support individual product lines. Unit level activities, those are performed for each unit or customer one at a time. Over here, this gray box, non-volume based cost drivers, those are allocation measures that use a rate other than something directly that relates to units produced, direct labor hours, machine hours, or direct material costs. Volume based allocation measures, those are cost drivers that use a rate directly related to the number of units produced, such as direct labor hours, machine hours, or direct materials costs. All right, cost objects. This is similar to lesson 1 where we talked about the different types of costs and cost definitions. Cost objects, those are products or services that generate activities. All right, so a cost object generates an activity. What's an activity? And an activity is an event that causes the consumption of an overhead resource. How do we determine overhead allocation? Well, we have an activity cost pool, we have an activity measure, we have an activity rate. All those go into how we're going to allocate in an activity-based costing system. Let's look at this sort of peach chart over here. It's called categorization of activities. So on the left side of the chart we've got levels, in the middle we've got activities, and on the right we've got activity measures. Now we're going to see an example for round belly, but these are the general type of activity measures for activities within levels. All right, we talked about certain levels over here. So a unit level type of activities that happen at a unit level are processing units on machines, processing units by hand, consuming factory supplies. How are those activities measured? They're measured by machine hours, direct labor hours, units produced. Those are volume-based allocation measures, right? There's non-volume and then there's volume-based. Those are volume-based. So then there's a batch level. What kind of activities happen at the batch level? There's processing purchase orders, processing production orders, setting up equipment, handling materials. Each of those has a measure. One of the measures, processing purchase orders, that measure is purchase orders processed. Processing production orders, that measure is production orders processed. Setting up equipment, number of setups, handling materials, pounds of material handled. Going down to product level, within the product level there's different activities. Testing new products, administering parts inventories, designing products. Each of those has their measures. Hours of testing time, number of part types, hours of design time. Facility level, there's different activities: general factory administration, plant building and grounds. Those are all direct labor hours are the measures for those type of activities. And then customer level activities, you got designing customer specific products, contract negotiation and creation. Those are direct labor hours. Direct labor hours are the measure of those. So that's this is more of a conceptual chart to get you to understand what we're talking about. We're talking about a level. Each of those levels has activities, and with each of those, and we measure that activity somehow. And that the way we measure it's called an activity measure, and that activity measure is based on either a volume or a non-volume based measure, and then the measures we have on this side. Now let's go up to this chart. Right here at the top it says activity-based costing. This is the typical flow of cost, right? So, as I said, activity-based costing, what we're really concerned about, it's not direct materials, it's not direct labor, those are easy to trace. These are the indirect costs, the manufacturing overhead costs. So the top of this chart is the manufacturing overhead cost. That's the big pool we're talking about. That's the overriding all of this activity-based costing. So we go from the manufacturing overhead cost to the first stage cost assignment. So the first stage cost assignment is we're assigning from the overall manufacturing overhead costs, we're breaking it down and we're assigning it to different pools, right? And so we've got a labor-related pool, we've got a machine-related pool, a setup pool, production order pool, parts admin pool, general factory pool, and customer admin pool. All right, those are similar to our levels, right? We got unit level, batch level, product level, facility, customer level. Those pools fit into levels, which we've already discussed. So we take all of our costs, we break it into pools, and then we do a second stage allocation. How do we take those different pools, right? Because an activity cost pool is a bucket, right? And so how do we take that bucket of costs and then assign it down to products? Well, we do it based on activity measure rates, right? Or activity rates. So labor-related pool, we assign to the last thing, as our assignment of products. So we take the cost pool, we break it down into a rate, and then we apply the pool at a given rate to products. Labor-related pool, we assign direct labor hours. Machine-related pool, we assign machine hours. Setup pool, dollars per setup. Production order pool, dollars per order. Parts admin pool, dollars per type. General factory pool, dollars per machine hours. Customer admin pool, dollars per direct labor hour. So that's basically that. What we're trying to demonstrate here is we've got this top level of manufacturing overhead costs. All right, we want to